Just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 302nd episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today is the quarterfinals, and I think this might be the best day of high school football of the year. When you look at the NFL, I think it's championship day. I don't know if it has an official name. Championship Sunday. I mean, there's nothing better than that. With college football, obviously the playoff days are a lot of fun, but with high school football, the state championships are spread out multiple days. We'll have a great semifinal, but tonight, you look at these matchups, 32 games, it's going to be quite a night. And it's always fun to be on that Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, where everyone's been off all week. We kind of hang out with our families and stuff, and then it's just back to the high stakes of these games. And so we'll be at the Carrollton Walton game tonight. GPB is going to be televising the Colquitt County at Milton game. So those are two outstanding matchups to switch back and forth. It's hard to pick one, but I think our Walton Carrollton game is going to be action-packed start to finish. So let's just look at that matchup real quick and what's at stake in the storyline. So obviously it's a rematch of last year. That was when then freshman Juju Lewis really helped Carrollton break over the hump. They had exited in the quarterfinals, I think, like 6 straight times. That was actually one of the reasons Joey King took over. That's a proud program that wants to win state titles. They had some tough losses in the quarterfinals to eventual state champs, and so he came in. There's lots of excitement around a very young team last year that you really can't even say overachieved because they were just that good. And Juju had an incredible freshman season, and leading them to the finals was definitely a victory. And they opened up this year. They're in a nationally televised game. They drop a close one to Hughes, and then they have not lost since. What makes Carrollton good? Obviously, it's Juju. He hasn't made any mistakes this year. Even the game they lost, he did everything to put his team right there to win it. He's been clutch. He's been poised, mature. He hasn't let any of the distractions get to him. He's just been putting in the work. Physically, he's getting bigger. He's working on all the little things, and he has really matured into a respected leader on his team. They have confidence in him to drive them down the field, and he truly is a special talent. It's also the mismatches that Carrollton has at the receiver position, primarily Caleb Odom, the Alabama commit that you will see a lot of tonight. And so I think the key for me, I have a prop. I don't normally do this. It's a flag right here. And I have a feeling that when Carrollton needs them, they're going to go to these one-on-one jump balls in the red zone. Walton has to be able to find a way to defend him without giving them a fresh set of downs. When we were watching the Rome game, Rome's defense was really getting after it. They had great schemes with their pass rush. They knew how to keep Juju in the pocket, but also make it difficult with batted down balls. Juju's really good at moving, but he obviously can pass in the pocket too. But there was a situation in that game where Rome had really made it difficult for them in the red zone, and they just went to Caleb Odom, and he did what he did with his big 6'6" frame and out-jumped him. So who is going to match up on Caleb in those situations? Are they going to double team him? If you look at the past statements from the second round, Carrollton's win over Valdosta, Coach King talked about how setting up Caleb Odom and the passing game really does come down to getting Kamari Farmer going. That's their sophomore running back, and I think they're a balanced offense, but he's 100% right, because you're going to want to double team Caleb, and you're going to lose that luxury if Kamari and that offensive line is getting big positive games. You're going to have to focus on the run, and then that's when Caleb has done his thing. And so I think with Carrollton, you look at them throughout the year, that's been the case. They haven't been the best first half team, but once Kamari gets going, once they feel out the defense and have that balance, Juju's the guy. He finds his playmakers, and that's what makes them very dangerous. So I think that's the key for me, avoiding the pass interference penalties. He's going to get some on you, but you can't give them those fresh downs. All right, so then in terms of offense for Walton, I don't think they have to necessarily set up the run first for the passing game. I just think they're, based off the tempo, the depth, and how they spread the ball out, they're going to come out and mix it up from the start. Makari Bodiford had one of the best junior seasons in the state last year. This year, Austin Williams has stepped up, and I think he is leading Walton in rushing just because he's taken more carries. But these last couple weeks, Makari Bodiford is an elite, college-ready running back. He can catch out of the backfield, and he can fight for tough yards. So he had, I think, 12 carries in the season opener. Didn't have double-digit carries again until the first round, I think, against Mountain View. And then this last week, he split carries with Austin Williams. They both had over 100 yards rushing. Walton had, I think it was 589 total yards. So that balance is going to be there. For Carrollton's defense, Jacob Levy is an outstanding player you're going to see up front. He's actually not a state champion wrestler. He is a national champion wrestler. He has amazing leverage. He knows how to disrupt, maximize his impact, and then the defense really does do work around him just with what he's able to do up front at the point of attack. So that'll be a key matchup with this Walton offensive line. We know Daniel Calhoun's going to be on the outside. His job obviously will be crucial in providing protection for Jeremy Heglinski. I think the other thing that Carrollton's defense is going to have to do is defend against the improvised playmaking skill of Jeremy Heglinski. He can run around with the ball. He sees the field extremely well, and he has a group of targets that has a lot of trust in their quarterback to find him. So they don't have any routes where you're just trying to clear the zone. He can deliver it to anyone on the field, sideline to sideline, and you're going to see a lot of that. And then Hunter Teal, the tight end, when Walton is spreading the ball out, you really got to keep an eye on him. He's big and physical. He has the stature almost of like an H-back, but he's playing the tight end role. He runs extremely well, and I think he's going to have a lot of big plays. You got to look for him on third downs and then where he can make them hurt. We'll see in terms of special teams. I think that's probably even this year. I think Walton has a tendency to be a little more aggressive, But this last week against Valdosta, Carrollton did run a fake punt, and they succeeded on that play. So that is definitely something to watch. So let's look at this preview real quick. This is from the Marietta Daily Journal. All right, then freshman Juju Lewis, who threw for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns. There's a typo. Connected, and this is recapping last year's game. Connected a 51-yard touchdown pass to Caleb Odom that to the Walton 4-yard line. And then 3 plays later, the Trojans had a 28-21 lead they took into the half. So this has been the concern and main focus of Walton all offseason, all season long, is going back to that stretch of the game where they felt like they let it get away from them, and that's what turned the favor. So they really have this focus within the game, not to let the other team get them off their focus and then respond within the game. They did that extremely well against North Cobb. They did it honestly well in the season opener when White Sonderman fumbled on the first play of the game, and then they ended up getting the ball back, forcing a turnover. So it's about responding when you have a negative play, trying to get back on track. So on the first play from scrimmage to start the third quarter, Hecklinski mishandled a bad snap, and that fumble was recovered by Montreat Glenn at the Walton 13-yard line. 3 plays later, Lewis connected with Jordan White for an 11-yard touchdown, and the Trojans quickly had a 2-touchdown advantage, leaving Walton in catch-up mode the rest of the night. We lost in the middle of the game, and it cost us, Coach Bruner said. We were right where we need to be, but you can't make mistakes against a team like that. This year, the Raiders come into the game 12-0. They're averaging 50 points per game and allowing just 13. And Bruner said the team is fresh, ready to go, and thankful for the experience that they have to play at Grisham Stadium once again. Friday's game is not only matching 2 of the top teams in 7A, but it will feature 2 nationally ranked teams in the 12th ranked Raiders and 17th ranked Trojans. That is in the Max Preps national poll. To come out on top, Bruner said Walton will have to limit Carrollton, which is averaging 48 points a game and allowing 12.8. Doesn't get more even than that. To do that, the best opportunity will be drives where the Raiders keep the Trojans' offense and Lewis, a 5-star USC commit who's completed 163 of 246 for 2,800 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions on the sideline. Getting stops, Bruner said they're going to move the ball, and one of our goals is can we get 6 stops in this game? They're going to have the ball at least 10 times. Can we stop them 6 times and get our offense back on the field? That'll be something to watch. It's a very specific number. I think that the way Walton prepares for games, that's going to be a goal they'll definitely want to check off. And that will determine the pace and how aggressive they are. All right, they're a really good team, and they're very similar to us. That job will fall to a defense led by linebackers Ashton Woods. And I'll point out, Ashton Woods, he was playing as a freshman in the state playoffs against Colquitt County. He's a 4-year starter. He's developed physically. He's an absolute beast now. A tremendous athlete, could probably play tight end if he wanted to. He runs extremely well, and he also has a lot of career turnovers, forced fumbles, interceptions. He did it in Georgia Elite too, and he actually caught Walton's first touchdown pass. Well, he scored Walton's first touchdown of the season. Last year in this game, he had a broken wrist, a cast up to here, and a club for a hand, and I think there was a play in that game where he almost had an interception despite that. So he's got both hands going, both wrists, and he is someone that can produce that turnover and clutch play. He'll be all over the field. All right. And I know his dad would say he's unguardable, and he pretty much has been all season. All right, Wendell Gregory is also back there, the South Carolina commit, and Jake Thorner, a leading tackler on the team. So all those guys are healthy. And then along with defensive lineman and Yale commit Lota Igokwe. The foursome has combined for 31 sacks and 57 tackles for loss. So obviously getting a team like Carrollton into 3rd and longs might not be as beneficial as other teams because you have a great quarterback like Juju, but that's something they have been able to do all season long. All right, on offense, while Hecklinski, a Wake Forest commit, comes into the game having completed Class 7A leading 3,025 yards, 39 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. Despite those passing numbers, a key to the game will be the running tandem of Austin Williams and Makari Bodiford. In its 45-28 loss to Carrollton last year, Valdosta had 2 running backs. Sorry, this was Carrollton. Hold up. In its 45-28 loss to Carrollton last week, Valdosta had 2 running backs who ran for more than 100 yards. That was Todd Robinson, 20 carries for 167. And then Darren Foster, 10 for 112 and a score. Both backs broke off long runs. Robinson a 65-yard touchdown and Foster an 89-yard score. And Valdosta did not have a line anchored by 6'7", 360-pound Walton lineman Daniel Calhoun. It's a great point. Valdosta, though, I felt like they knew they had to come into that game last week against Carrollton and run the ball. I do think Walton's offense has proven they aren't as one-dimensional, and so I think that's something that could factor in, but I just think they're 2 completely different offenses. All right, if the Raiders can run behind the 4-star Georgia commit, the holes may be there for Williams. He's got 908 yards on the season, 12 touchdowns, and Bodiford 800 yards, 17 touchdowns. They have ran for a combined 1,700 yards. If Walton can establish the run, it may open things up for leading receiver Cameron Lloyd, who's caught 70 passes for 1,151 yards and 13 touchdowns. He had the fastest play in the entire country during the regular season, clocking over 22 miles per hour, and has had one of the best breakout seasons I've seen. It will also loosen things up for tight end Hunter Teal, Jordan Bride, he'll be playing both sides of the ball, and Wyatt Sonderman, the last of whom recently returned to the lineup after being out several weeks with a broken hand. Wyatt did have a touchdown last week, and he is back. So there you have it. There's a preview. It's going to be an unbelievable football game. Can't wait. Our coverage will start at 7:30 with our pregame show. We're going to start on the field. It'll be me, Rusty, and Kaylee. We'll break down the 7A matchups, all 4 of them, 6A, and then we'll be on the set to go over the rest of the state. But let's go ahead. We'll just take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me, can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands, improper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, welcome back. So the next game, let's talk about Camden County at Mill Creek. Mill Creek's another undefeated team, 12-0. They've done a phenomenal job replacing a lot of guys. I think the key for them has been Cam Robinson. He became Mill Creek's all-time leading rusher last week, 3,534 yards, and this is just his second season playing the running back position. Camden County is going to go to Mill Creek. They're 9-3. They had a really solid win last week against McEachern, 26-0. That was a game where McEachern committed 3 straight turnovers at one point, had a kind of sloppy outing, but they got the shutout. And Camden County is the only team in the quarterfinals that has scored road wins in the first 2 rounds. They also had the win over Newton in the first round. That was a 29-15 game. So Camden County, it's been a long time since they've made a big playoff run like this, but stopping Cam Robinson, that will certainly be the key for them. And then it's what Mill Creek does so well. They play guys 2 ways, but they also put them in a balanced role offensively with plays specifically designed. With Mill Creek, you'll see guys like Trajan Greco coming in, taking snaps out of the Wildcat. They're so situationally aware during the ball game. I think it's going to be a really tough matchup. And then that defense for Mill Creek has been outstanding. They are the only team that has beaten Buford this season, and they've been methodical, haven't turned the ball over, and I think they have the best special teams in the state. They got an incredible kicker, and they're just solid in all 3 phases. Be a tough test for Camden County. All right, the other one, Buford at Grayson. It's not televised, but everyone's going to be talking about this game. It's such an intriguing matchup. You have the athleticism of Grayson. You have their offense really starting to click with J.D. Davis. You got John Sinius is coming up as one of the clutchest receivers in the state this season, making big plays every week. You got Dylan Elder in the backfield, and then defensively, Tyler Atkinson, a great defensive front. So how aggressive will they be coming after Dylan Raiola? Where if you've watched Buford this season, the offensive line, I know Buford's well known for it, but they have allowed some pressure on him. And he has had to scramble, extend plays, and then really KJ Bolden has been the key playmaker for them on both sides of the ball, the best athlete in the country. But I think with Grayson, they've got the strength and speed where Dylan might not be able to escape like he has been against these other teams. They're going to have to bring him down and be aggressive. And then that secondary, they got to hit hard and make it as difficult as possible. And the key 100% is for Grayson's offense. Don't commit the penalties, no false starts, none of that, and they cannot turn the ball over and give anything free to Buford. All right, Colquitt County at Milton, and that will be the other televised matchup. It's the first ever meeting since the 2018 state championship game that Milton won 14-13 in one of the bigger upsets in state finals history. I do remember that game. That was crazy. That was a game where I think that was the year it got snowed out and they had to move it. I think that one was played at Milton. All right, Colquitt County, ranked number 3, beat Westlake 38-19 in the second round. Colquitt has scored at least 35 points in each game. Nico Fan, injured in the first round and questionable for the second round, was 10 of 22 passing for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's playing banged up, but he's still out there. He is their best option despite not being 100%. Ramsey Dennis rushed for 105 yards in the game, and their marquee player is a name we all know, Nye Carr, the Florida State commit. He's got 1,168 yards receiving this year and 20 touchdowns. I believe that's leading the state. That is incredible production from Nye Carr. So Milton's got a great secondary. They're well known for their pass rush, but really no one has had an answer for Nye Carr. He's been so effective this season. All right, so last week Milton beat Collins Hill 42-21. That was the second time they beat them this year. Luke Nickel, Miami commit, he was 20 of 27 passing for 298 yards and 4 touchdowns, all 4 to C.J. Wiley, who had 7 receptions for 174 yards. Nickel is second in 7A in passing behind Jeremy Hecklinski, and Wiley is first in yards. So really explosive matchup right there. Two teams that met in the championship in 2018. Should be a phenomenal game, and the fact that it's at Milton, I think that is a blessing for the Eagles. I mentioned last week, a year ago, the GHSA ruled that Milton's capacity size wasn't enough to host in the semis. I think that was the semis, so they had to go to McEachern. They played, I think it was like a 4 p.m. kickoff against Mill Creek, and it was not an ideal game. Mill Creek jumped out to, I think, a 28-0 lead. That was Mikkel Wood just went off. Mill Creek's receiver, Hayden Clark, their starter, went down, and then Shane Throgmartin, Mill Creek started this year, came in and immediately found Mikkel Wood for a touchdown. So it wasn't at Milton. They had to travel to McEachern. They got off to a horrible start, and then they won this coin flip, and that is such a huge benefit to Milton. Carrollton hosting Walton, yeah, that's a big deal, but they have the motivation to go back there for the second year and try to avenge the loss. If Milton had to go down to Colquitt, that would have been a very tough trip, so maybe the home field will pay off. All right, so in Class 6A, the first matchup, and I think this game has a chance to possibly end before the others. That's Marist at Roswell. We know what Marist is going to try to do. Steadily move the ball down the field with the physicality of that triple option, that wishbone. Jack Ewart at quarterback, and then Jackson Hughes, the fullback. He has been an absolute beast all season long. He went off in our televised game against Blessed Trinity, and someone is going to have to stop him. There's not many games this season where the key player is the fullback, because a lot of teams don't use that position anymore. But obviously with Marist, he's the most important piece on the field. And if he can, he's not just an excellent blocker, he is also their leading rusher. And then in that BT game where Marist had that big 60-yard touchdown right before the half on the final play, he had the touchdown free and block. So he has that ability with his leverage, his physicality, to keep Marist on the field. And that's why I said if Marist, their strategy is going to be to keep that ball out of Roswell's hands. Roswell's scored 70 points this season. They've scored 80. They have probably the school's highest scoring offense ever. But if Marist can have those 14, 15 play drives and keep the time of possession, that will certainly be the key. And that's how Milton did it against Roswell when we televised their game. They dominated the time of possession. I think offensively, Roswell has the edge in terms of overall athletes at the skill positions. But once again, it's going to come down to Marist just going to try to hold the ball, not make any mistakes, and just, I don't know the saying, but just 3 yards at a time in a cloud of dust, something like that. All right, the other key matchup, Woodward Academy is going to host Gainesville, another good opportunity for them to be playing at home. Gainesville's a tough place to play, and Marist is, I believe, the only in-state team that beat Woodward Academy this year, and they did it exactly how I said, a game where they just controlled the ball the entire time and used the physicality of Jackson Hughes to just punish the defense one play at a time. All right, so Gainesville, both teams had their seasons ended by Hughes last year. Woodward Academy in the quarterfinals. Game Gainesville in the state championship. Gainesville is the #1 ranked team in 6A. They advanced to their back-to-back quarterfinal last week, a 35-12 victory over Blessed Trinity. They were up 14-5 at halftime. I think BT missed a field goal at the end of that half that could have cut it to a one-score game. And then in the third quarter, Gavin Hall took over. He had 3 third-quarter touchdowns. He also scored on a 26-yard touchdown reception. Woodward Academy has one of the best defenses in the state this year. I think they've held 8 of its last 9 opponents to 8 points or less. They shut down Houston County last week, 27-7. So defensively, Woodward Academy has the unit to stop Gainesville, but it's just going to be about Gavin Hall. If he gets going, that just opens up everything for Gainesville. They're going to try to get the ball in his hands at least 25 times, and then you got to put a body on Sky Niblett, their tight end. He's been great in the open field, and he's been way more involved this year. You also have Baxter Wright. He's a very mobile quarterback. He's tough. He'll fight for extra yards. If you're dropping back in coverage, he can make you pay with his legs. He has 2,045 passing yards and 417 rushing yards this season, and he has a phenomenal record as a starter, leading them to a 14-1 season last year and then 12-0 start this year. All right, the other 6A game, you got Lee County and Douglas County. That should be a very exciting one. Douglas County has been phenomenal this season with its offense. Then defensively, they're really young in the secondary, but they've got, I'd say, probably the most talented class of 2026 group in the state back there. And then the other key for them is they've been rock solid all season long on special teams. The kicker has not missed a field goal all season long. He's missed a couple PATs, and then Douglas County has been undefeated this season. We saw them in the Great Atlanta Bash. They had a big win over Mays. It was a crazy football game. And what was unconventional about that game, Mays kind of ditched its strategy for the game. They have a big defensive lineman that's going to UGA, like 280 pounds, and they put him in at quarterback and basically ran quarterback runs for the entire second half. And so you had a bunch of sophomores and freshmen in that Douglas County defense that were playing both sides of the ball early on in the season, having to square up and tackle a 280-pound defensive tackle. Well, Lee County, they have probably the most physical running back we've seen all season in Osmane Chroma. He's only a junior, isn't he? I think he's a junior. But we saw what he did against Houston County this year, over 300 yards, was dragging guys into the end zone, was playing with a hurt hamstring. They're going to feed him the rock. Lee County can also make plays. But then in that game, if you watched our Houston County game, Lee County is so good at producing sacks. When they played Lake Gibson this year, they had double-digit sacks. And they really do most of their work when they build a lead and when they know you need to pass the ball to get back in the game. They're going to come after it. So it's going to be crucial for Douglas County. Their offensive line, they got to buy time for Syer. He's going to spread the ball around. I think it's a very exciting matchup. Last week, Syer was 13 of 18 passing for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 36 yards. He's an outstanding athlete. He's got 2,425 passing yards and 400 rushing yards this season. And then Zamarcus Lindley, he had 100 yards rushing on 10 carries. They have held their last 7 opponents to 14 points or less. So with Lee County, you got to try to stop the run, make them pass the ball on you. but that obviously will be difficult with Chroma in that backfield. They're going to give it to him as many times as it takes. All right, the other matchup in 6A, we're going to have Thomas County Central at Rome. Rome gets to host that matchup. Thomas County Central is undefeated. They had a 56-6 win over Jonesboro last week. They got one of the best defenses in the state this season. They've pretty much looked unbeatable this year. They haven't played in a close game. They've just been dominating. They are 24-1 over the last 2 years since Justin Rogers inherited the program. And I think they were like 2-8 this season before. So it's been truly incredible. The jump up from Class 4A to 6A, they enter the toughest region probably in 6A overall, and they've lost one game the last 2 seasons. It's just phenomenal. So he comes over from Colquitt. He's got his guys playing tough, focused, and their defense has just been championship level this season. Key for them is they're going to have to stop Reese Fountain. Rome is really good offensively when they can establish the run. The only time they got beat this season was the Carrollton game. They only had 10 rushing yards in the first half. So Thomas County Central can shut down the run and then force Rome to pass the ball and then just get after it. I think it could be a tough matchup for Rome. They're going to have to run the ball with Chance MacArthur and company, but it should be another great matchup. DK Daniel, he's, I'd say, the fastest, most explosive player on that Rome offense. He had the big 56-yard touchdown to open up the game against Hughes. And then defensively, Jaden Harmon, the most talented prospect on Rome's defense. He's going to play a big role at linebacker. He can cover. Had a big interception in the third quarter. And then Joe Wilkinson at that safety position. He's going to come in and bring that energy and toughness and swagger that Rome has had all season long. It's a group that, with Reese and DK, they've played together since they were in the 6th grade. This is what they've been waiting for, trying to bring that state championship back to Rome. So it should be a very exciting matchup at Barron Stadium. All right, in Class 5A, real quick, I think this game reminds me of the Walton Carrollton one because it's a great rematch. The Creekside at Warner Robins game. Warner Robins has had such an interesting season with the addition of Judd Anderson coming over mid-season. He's a Miami commit. Came over from Jones County in the middle of the year, led him to a big comeback his first game against Northside Warner Robins. And then they've had some really tight games where they've been able to come out at the end. I think they beat Ola on a 2-point conversion, had a thriller against Jones County. And so they've been clutch down the stretch, especially last week against Ware County. That was Alberto Medina kicked a 42-yarder on the final play of the game, and that gave them a 23-21 victory. So season on the line, you miss it, there's no overtime, it's over, and he delivered. So he's got confidence in his leg, and he is definitely a weapon. With Creekside, their offense has been very deep this year. You got Roderick McCrary. He had 228 yards this last week. And then Travis Terrell and Coach Coach Dixon says he thinks both of them are the top backs in the state, and they got both of them back there. You also got Vincent Berry. He's thrown 33 touchdowns this season. I don't know how high scoring that game's going to be, but I think Creekside is just going to be about getting that running game going, and I still have Creekside as my favorite this year. I think they're very motivated in this matchup. It was a game they felt they could have won last year. Forgot who Coach Dixon said was the big-time playmaker for Warner Robins. They did have Vic Burley on the defensive line, but one of their other players, I think it was Malcolm, their running back, just had an incredible, tough performance. But that's a game they definitely want to win. All right, Jefferson is going to play at Harris County. They're undefeated. Last week, Sammy Brown had a historic game, rushed for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also threw a touchdown pass, a beautiful deep ball that was well covered. And then as good as he played offensively, that's like a season worth of highlights in one game. He had 15 tackles and a season high 3 tackles for loss. So he's going to have to do it again. One of the most talented players to ever come through the state. Harris County is going to have to account for him. Obviously, swarm him when he has the ball defensively. He can break tackles. He's not going to want to go down. He's got elite speed, but then offensively, you're going to have to account for him. He's going to get in that backfield, and you're going to have to put multiple hats on him. He's the strongest player in the state and one of the fastest, so obviously that'll be the key. All right, Jenkins at Cartersville. I think this one's interesting because Cartersville, if you watch them this year, they've had a ton of comebacks. They haven't played their best in the first half, but they've found ways to win every single week. And then Jenkins is coming off back-to-back 1-point victories. So they've been in some close matchups as well. And I think them and Cass are the only number 4 seeds, I believe, that are still left. All right, Cass is going to play at Coffee. They beat Mays 17-7 last round. Coffee, they're 12-0. Their defense has been lights out. They have not allowed more than 14 points in any game this season, so that's the number to watch tonight. Cass had a low-scoring win last week against Mays. I actually thought that game was going to be a shootout, and so that was surprising. I feel like Cass is relying on its defense and then just letting Brody McCorder manage the game, be aggressive when he needs to be. And then Sokovie White is going to draw a ton of attention. So I think Cass has a chance to keep this run going. Coffee is going to be a big test, but can Cass get past that 14-point mark? All right, in Class 4A, you got Stockbridge at Spalding. For Spalding, Kurt Clark has been one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the state this season. He's a multi-year starter. He led Spalding to a undefeated regular season, a big win over Perry in the region championship game. They had a bye before the playoffs, and then they have looked really stout defensively. They had I think a shutout, 20-0 win over Troop this last round. So they're in the quarterfinals for the first time since 2016. Stockbridge took a big sigh of relief. They won on the final minute last week against Westminster, 28-24. So Stockbridge is a team that I've picked as a dark horse in 4A, but they had a really tough time against Westminster last round, and now they got a big game against Spalding on the road. So we'll see how they bounce back from that if they get back on track. Their only losses this year are to Douglas County and Colquitt. They've won 10 straight since. All right, you got North Oconee at Benedictine. That's the number 1 versus number 2. Benedictine has Luke Cromenhawk at quarterback. He actually led them to a state title 2 years ago as a wide receiver and safety. Switched over to quarterback last year, led them to another state title, and blew up in recruiting more than any player I've ever seen. Jumping, I think, at one point from like the 800th ranked player in the country to like a 5-star All-American, and he was showing out all off-season in all these camps. He's big, physical, a tremendous athlete. He's going to Florida State. With North Oconee, they just have such a well-balanced team. They've been working very hard to improve each season. They made the quarterfinals 2 years ago, made their first ever semifinal last year, and now this year they're trying to get to the finals for the first time, but they're going to have to take on Benedictine on the road, and Benedictine has not lost to a 4A opponent in 3 seasons. The thing I think North Oconee has going for them is obviously the overall depth that they've acquired throughout the season with some of these blowouts. But it's their secondary. They have 6'2" guys all over the field, so I think they have a chance to shut down the deep ball and then just get after it defensively. Defense will definitely win this game. All right, Stars Mill at Central Carroll. Central Carroll is a young team that I think is going to be even better in the years to come. They had a nice win in the first round against Hateville Charter. That was a tough matchup, and then had another big victory last week over Lovett, 38-10. And then Stars Mill outpaced New Hampstead last week, 45-27. Their defense has been the strength of the team all season long, but they proved last week that they can put up the points when they need to. I think that might have been a season high. And Hunter Meeks is Stars Mill's weapon. He's one of the highest rated kickers in the state. Had some clutch kicks that helped Stars Mill win the region title this year, and he had a 44-yarder to give Stars Mill a 24-20 lead over New Hampstead last week. All right, Perry is going to play at Stevenson, and the good news for Perry is quarterback Coulter Jen is back. He missed about 4 or 5 weeks with an injury. Perry was able to rely on Ahmad Gordon and then defense to put themselves in this position. They scored a 7-3 win over number 3 ranked Bainbridge last week, giving Bainbridge its first loss within 4A. Now they've got their pieces back offensively. They're going to be playing at Stevenson, team that is battle tested, and they are one of 3 DeKalb teams still playing, joining Cedar Grove and Class 2A Columbia. All right, let's take one more quick break before we hit 3A and conclude the show.
Yeah, this is the Elite Classic. Yes, sir.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, welcome back. So in Class 3A, I think it's really coming down to 2 teams that I see as the favorites. You got Cedar Grove and then Calvary Day. Cedar Grove is going to play at Mary Persons. I think they lost a coin flip on that one after winning their region. They're ranked number 2. They've obviously seen the toughest competition out of any 3A team still in this playoffs. They're battle tested, made it to the finals last year, lost on a controversial play, and they got E.J. Colson at quarterback. He was 14 of 16 for 196 yards last week. That is a great sign for them, and they had a big victory over Hebron Christian and then defeated Bremen 49-14 last week. Bo Walker, Georgia commit, rushed for 191 yards and scored 5 touchdowns off 15 carries in the win over Bremen. That will be a tough task for Mary Persons, but we'll see if they can score an upset. They did previously beat Prince Avenue Christian this season. All right, Wesleyan at Calvary Day. I think Calvary Day is my favorite at this point. You got Jake Merlinger, a 4-year starter, one of the best quarterbacks to come through the state, and then defensively, Calvary Day has stepped up this season. They're playing just as good on both sides of the football. Wesleyan had a great win last week, And I think the key, that was over Stevens County. The key for them, it reminds me of when Blessed Trinity beat Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs. If you can slow down the game and keep it close and then have just that aggressive play ready to go. How did BT win that game? It was basically tied up at the end. There wasn't much time left. Cartersville thought that BT was just going to try to set up a potential field goal to win it. Instead, McFarland hit him with the deep ball, went over the top, and completely stunned them and stole the game right there. So if you can potentially catch Calvary Day in a situation before the half where they think you're going to try to kick a field goal or something, you got to be aggressive and steal points and momentum. I think that's the only way to beat them, because they're just rolling at this point, and they're senior-led, and they've got a great season behind them. All right, Savannah Christian at Lumpkin County. Lumpkin County is in uncharted territory. They're undefeated, and they beat Coney County 45-42 in double overtime last week. That game was back and forth. Will Staples had that game-winning field goal, and then they made a big fourth down stop. Savannah Christian obviously comes out of that Calvary Day region. They've got a really talented team. They come off an overtime game as well after knocking out Peach County. All right, and then Monroe area at Carver Columbus. Carver Columbus coming off a 7-6 win over Upson Lee. And then Monroe area, they beat Gilmer 42-24. Gilmer was the number 4 seed. Had a big upset in the first round. All right, in Class 2A, interesting top 10 matchup I think is going to be Fellowship Christian and then Pierce County. Pierce County is going to host. They're ranked number 3 in Class 2A right now. I think Fellowship's around the 6 or 7 mark. CJ Givers is going to take a ton of handoffs. He's a sophomore. He had 118 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. And then it has been, don't have his name right here, Josh Mahol. How do you say it? Malahim. He's the DB and receiver for them, and he's been just really clutch in their region finale. He scored on a defensive touchdown. He housed a kick and had a touchdown reception. But I think the key is just with their offensive line and CJ Givers. They are my dark horse in 2A. You got Toombs County. They defeated defending state champion Thompson last week. They're going to have to go to Rockmart up in North Georgia. Rockmart's one of the highest scoring teams in the state. But after outpacing Thompson last week, we know how good Javarius Curry is. They proved that they can win in a shootout. Then you got Columbia. We mentioned one of the 3 remaining DeKalb teams. They're going to play at Cook. Cook is Columbia is unranked actually, but they held on to an 18-13 win over North Cobb Christian. And then Cook, they're the region champ out of Region 1. And then they had a strong 24-14 win over Appleton County last week. They were up 17-0 in that game and then cruised to the victory. They're in the quarters for the first time since 2010. All right, the key matchup in Class A Division 1 is going to be Irwin County at Prince Avenue Christian. Irwin County, I thought, had the most impressive result in the second round. They shut out Bleckley County. That's Von Lassiter's team, the former Houston County coach. He's at his alma mater there. They had a great season, and Irwin County 31-0 win. They held Bleckley County to 39 yards in that game, total yards. So now you're going up against the air raid, Aaron Philo-led Prince Avenue Christian offense. Their first round matchup was called off. They were going to square up with Athens Christian, who made the playoffs despite a winless record. They didn't want to go out there and play. I think they had numbers that wouldn't have been able to field the team. So that was a forfeit, and then Prince Avenue made up for it against a really talented Mount Vernon team. They won 72-41. So can Irwin County's defense find a way to slow down Prince Avenue Christian? That will be tough to do. They're so explosive, and they're going to pass the ball all over the season. Aaron Philo, in that win over Mount Vernon, had a season low 207 yards, but that's just because he didn't play the full game. But he did have 102 yards rushing in that game. And then Connor Cosby, 155 yards and 5 touchdowns. So just ridiculous numbers offensively. We'll see if Irwin County can slow them down. All right, Commerce at Bryan County. Commerce has had thriller after thriller this season. They've had a really fun run, and they're going to look to keep that going. Let's see, these teams, both of these teams have passed the ball 5 times or fewer per game. Commerce has won a bunch of games this season without completing the pass. So that game is just going to be ground and pound football. It should be a very exciting one. You got Swainsboro at Elbert County. Swainsboro is looking to return to the finals after falling last year to Prince Avenue Christian. They had a tough end to their season. They lost to Dublin, and I think had another loss in the region. They're 10-2, but they have looked really sharp in the playoffs when it matters. And you got Jordan Williams and DeMello Jones leading that Swainsboro rushing attack. They got 3 players with more than 800 yards. And then Rabun County is going to play at Brooks County, another great top 10 matchup. 2 very talented programs. All right, the Class A Division II. I think the big key is going to be Sly County. I think it's their title to win this year. They're undefeated. They're leading the division in offense. They had a first-round bye and then cruised to a victory last week. A lot of these teams that are still in the playoffs, though, in Class A Division II, Sly County has already faced them this season in their region or last year. So the Early County game is a rematch of the September 1st regular season matchup, which Sly County won 30-0. Jay Kanazawa was 13 of 24 for 172 yards and 3 touchdowns, and ran for a season high 60 yards and a score. He's thrown for 2,435 yards and 28 touchdowns this season. In last week's 49-23 win over Lincoln County, he was 30 of 33 passing for a season high 335 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was coming off a bye. Jeremiah Rogers is the Wildcats' leading rusher. He's got 620 yards on 73 carries. So they got a really exciting product going on with the Bobcats in Sly County. They'll be at home looking to improve to 12-0. You're going to have defending state champion Bowden is going to host region champion Dooley County. They won their first region title since '99. They're 8-4, and they rallied back from a 24-14 deficit last week to beat Johnson County. You got Macon County is still in it. They're in that same region as Sly County. They're going to play at Telfair County. I think Sly's actually played both those teams this year. And then Manchester at Clinch County. I think Clinch County might be the bracket buster in Class A Division II. They're battle tested, played a lot of higher classification teams this season, and they've had some big victories, including last week against Seminole County 35-6. Clinch County is ranked number 4 in Class A Division II, and Manchester is ranked number 2 behind Sly County. So Manchester, that's right, they're one of the 3 Region 6 teams that are still alive, and they are ranked 1, 2, 3. So you're going to see a lot of rematches in Class A Division II. But that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy the games tonight. I'm excited to see what happens with Walton going to Carrollton. See you there.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.